to the show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Mats Podcast, and it's me, Mr. Dante, as usual. This week, I'm going to have Coach Phill Schwartz from 10th Planet Portland on as my guest this week. And I got fussed at a little bit about have my guest on, not from any of the listeners, but by a friend. They're like, "Oh, cool, you're having Black Belt on, Coach. Cool." I was like, "Hey, so you might want to talk to him about more stuff besides jiu-jitsu." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then when I reached out to Coach Phill, he was like, "Look, man, we can talk about Doctor Strange." I was like, "Love to hear it." Because guess what? He's got an opinion. So do I. So we're going to get in here and nerd it up. Welcome to the show, Coach. How you been?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
No. Thank you for making time for me and being my guest here. I appreciate it. So
I think you're right about that, by the way. I think that a lot of people do talk get kind of tired talking about the same things in interviews and hey, what's your story and where'd you come up and what's your origin story? You know what I mean? We've heard the origin story enough times, and I'm not Peter Parker. We don't need to hear my origin story 6 more times. You know what I'm saying? So
that's when I was told that, I was like, "Ooh, you know what? You're right." Because every time they do a new Batman movie, we get the origin. Each time it's like, how many times are we going to shoot Martha and Thomas?
Kill him again. Kill him again.
As soon as they say, "So we're redoing Batman," and all you can hear is in the collective comic book world, Thomas Wayne saying, "Fuck." I'm sick of getting shot. So we're gonna skip all of that. When you reached out to me and said you want to talk Doctor Strange, or you're willing to talk Doctor Strange, I was like, "Good, let's go." So how do you feel about it?
The new one or the first one?
Let's go both.
The first Doctor Strange was one of my favorite comic book movies of all time.
Nice.
I actually saw it the first time in England. Nathan Orchard and I were in England because he was getting ready to compete at Polaris, and he was going to fight Imanari. And we had just completed his weight cut, which was a brutal weight cut. He had to make it down to like 150 pounds. It's like 16 pounds of weight to cut. And we had made it, and we treated ourselves to a steak dinner, and we went and watched Doctor Strange. And I thought it was, fantastic. I thought it was so great. The more recent one, Multiverse of Madness, I thought it was good, but I was kind of hoping for more, I kind of wanted more. And what led me to want more was I got really into the What If series,
Yep.
And so getting into the What If series, we saw like the introduction of the multiverse and kind of where things might be going in the future of the Marvel. And, of course, there was like so much fan service in Multiverse of Madness, like introducing characters. We saw Reed Richards, we saw Xavier, we saw all these kind of people that we've been like holding our breath to see on the Marvel screen, and then we saw them all wiped out like pretty quickly. So that was like, now we know that once they've been introduced, we know they can come back. We know there's other universes and other planets. And so whether things are gearing up for Secret Wars or whatever, whichever way that they're going with the series, it was exciting, but at the same time, it was a little bit of like a tease for me, because I really wanted to see, more of those characters on screen for longer,
Yeah, I think that's kind of the overall consensus is there was a huge hope for the second one. I know with the first one, it's funny because the first one, a lot of people laughed at it before it came out. People are like, "Oh, that's going to be dumb, Doctor Strange." Even in me growing up with the material and being, I wasn't a crazy Doctor Strange fan, but I was aware of him. But even I was like, I mean, they've done well so far. They've tied it all together so far. I mean, hell, we got Ant-Man, so it can't hurt to have Doctor Strange. But I didn't see it in theater. I waited. I remember after training one night, it just hit Blu-ray, and I'm driving home, and I was like, you know what? There's a Walmart right here. Let me just hop inside. I'll go ahead and pick it up. And I still didn't watch it. I think I bought it probably a week after it came out, and I still didn't watch it for like maybe 2 months. I was at work one day, and it was a slow day, so I was like, you know what? I brought the disc with me, popped it in, and it because I was at work, I was forced to pay attention because if I'm not paying attention, I actually have to work, and I didn't want to do that. So
That's called
like,
multitasking.
well, if I watched it at home, I was going to be on my phone. I was going to, I have a basement full of action figures down here. I'd be, reorganizing the action figures. I would be doing anything but watching the movie. So I watched it at work, and I loved it. I was blown away. It just they did so many cool things that just made me think, oh wow, I need more of this character, like as soon as possible. So that first one, great. The second one, because how this world is being built, where it interconnects through all these other films, and more often than not, it builds up to something bigger. There was this huge hope that, we're going to get, like, we have the multiverse, but we're, a lot of fans are hoping we're going to really dig into the multiverse and start opening up these portals and we got Charles Xavier, so everybody's thinking, okay, yes, we're going to get the mutants. We've already got Scarlet Witch, who's, I guess in the comic, I don't know, she was Magneto's daughter, then they retconned it and said she's not. I don't know what the truth is anymore, nor do I care. I stopped messing with the comics many years ago, and I'm going to keep it that way. But you essentially have this pathway to introduce these mutants, and that's what everyone wants. Everyone's wanting the X-Men. Everyone wants the mutants. We get Reed Richards. I teared up a little bit.
I did. I loved it, especially the casting. I thought the casting was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually forgot that. So I don't want to say I forgot. With all the rumors coming out about the movie and who's going to be in it, John Krasinski was never mentioned. He was fan cast for so many years. Fans wanted him as Reed Richards, and when they showed, when Mordo says, "And the smartest man in the world," I was like, "Holy shit, they're about to do it." It's Reed Richards, and then they showed him. I was like, the theater I went to was empty because I went on a Thursday afternoon and opening day. I think there were 10 of us in the theater, and I was sitting in the back row in the middle by myself, and a tear rolled down my cheek. I was just like, oh, wow. And then they killed him. And I was just like, oh, well, okay. I guess no high hopes there.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, sometimes they have to show you how they want to show you how powerful a certain character is, but like, and I understand that Scarlet Witch is a very powerful character, but it's like you run into these problems sometimes where it's like you make someone so powerful in one scene, and then 3 scenes later, you know what I mean? Like you're defeating them with some other mechanism, and it's like, well, hey, how can she just obliterate all of these like other powerful heroes and then end up falling herself,
Yeah, that I just felt like the story was relatively disorganized and a little weak.
Also, I want to go back to something you said before, which was sometimes I feel like the first Doctor Strange was an excellent standalone. Like it stood on its own,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get the sense in the Marvel or MCU that sometimes we see things that come up and they're really just They really just are holding a place or helping to expand the project for a bigger vision or a bigger introduction that's coming later, and that was kind of how I felt about Multiverse of Madness too, was that I felt like this wasn't really a standalone film as much as it wasn't even really a continuation of the Doctor Strange storyline as much as it was, bridging a gap between a story that they want to tell and where they were previously.
Yeah, absolutely. I also feel like because of what Marvel Studios has set up, there's an expectation that all these movies have to connect this way now. And I don't dislike it, but I also like the idea that, sometimes it's okay to just have a movie by itself and, not expand. You could have like kind of like Captain America Winter Soldier. That's a movie I can watch over and over and over and over. And you don't really need to watch any other films to really connect it. Maybe the first Captain America, but otherwise, you don't have to watch anything afterward. You can let that movie sit and not be anything more. But with that movie, you get Doctor Strange mentioned. You get the introduction of the Winter Soldier, the introduction of Sharon Carter. You get things set up, and that's okay. Sometimes that's all you need is just the small nuggets to set something up, but you don't need to necessarily have every movie be this big bridge to connect to others. And I get where they're trying to go with it, but now after this film, my question, at least as a fan, is okay, where do you go with that part of the story? Because next we have Thor, Love and Thunder coming, and then Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and then after that, I believe Captain Marvel 2, Marvels, and then possibly Guardians 3. So it's like you've got all these other films now lined up.
But a lot of stuff is happening in space now. We're like we're
Yeah.
in the like we're not just tied to Earth anymore. Things are happening out in the galaxy, whether it's Guardians or Thor, Love and Thunder. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they tie it together. I think you're right though. I think that they've kind of established this expectation that everything is going to connect, and that now as an observer, as a viewer, we're not satisfied if it doesn't connect or if there isn't some sort of a larger tie-in that we're expecting, and again, like will this all build up to some sort of something, like the Infinity Saga again? Are we going to see, that many heroes on screen again, in some sort of conflict between multiverses?
I honestly hope that they don't. Well, not for a long time, at least. Like you mentioned Secret Wars, and that's an excellent build-up right there. But that's under the ideal that you get a true multiverse set up where you can get introduced to Miles Morales, you could get introduced to Spider-Gwen, you could get introduced to the X-Men. Really, you can get introduced to Spider-Girl, Spider-Man's daughter, Mayday Parker. You can get introduced to a lot of different things through Secret Worlds, and if they have Battle World and everything, and kind of go from there. You've got so much you can play off of that, but that's also something that you have to slow roll. You have to cook that, just like they did with Infinity War and then ultimately Endgame. And even with Endgame, I felt like Infinity War, I thought was great. Endgame, I thought was good. I, I I'm crazy about time travel, and the time travel stuff just really stressed me out because it was like I don't know how time travel really works. I don't think any of us do, but the way that they're playing with time travel is like, I don't know that that's how that goes, but they kind of explained it away because it's like, well, if you do it this way, you're creating a new reality, which, they explain that, they say it, but then at some point, it's almost like they kind of throw their own explanation out the window, because here we are still in the here and now, and everything is cool in the gang, but they made some big changes in the past,
Right.
So there should have been
Things that should have had repercussions in the future.
Yes. And I don't know. Maybe that'll get explained in some other property. I mean, a lot of Disney Plus shows, you have Secret Invasion upcoming. You can possibly toy with it somewhere in there. You have What If season 2, Loki season 2.
Loki was cool.
Yeah,
it
was good. Wow.
That was like unexpected,
Yeah, I felt like Loki was similar to the first Guardians movie, where it was a sleeper hit that no one knew what to expect. And then when we get it, we were just like, wow, can we have more? So
what was your least favorite of the Marvel TV shows?
Oh, I don't know, because I've liked them all a lot so far. I was most excited for WandaVision just because Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite characters. So I wanted to see where that went. Vision is one of my favorite characters too. So I wanted to see where that went, and it got weird. A lot of people weren't crazy about it, but I loved everything about what they were doing and what they're kind of posturing towards. But I can't think. Least favorites, maybe Hawkeye, and that's not to say that was bad. I enjoyed the hell out of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
But when you're comparing it to Loki, What If, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and that Falcon and Winter Soldier, it grew on me.
It wasn't my favorite. It took me a long time to get into it. It was slow in the beginning.
I might say that might be my least favorite. And the reason being is because I wanted more story on Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope we get a second season and they dig more into his story. So yeah, we'll say Falcon and Winter Soldier is my least favorite. But again, it's not that I didn't like it. I enjoyed it a lot, but I just felt like we needed more Bucky. What was your favorite out of the ones that we have so far?
I think my favorite was probably What If, followed by Loki. I think those were my top two. Those were the two that just kind of, because see, one of the things that I really like and also dislike, it has to be done correctly. But I think one of the most powerful trends in comic book properties right now is taking us somewhere adjacent to the storyline that we already know. And I think that, like, let's take like Mandalorian, for example, right?
Okay.
What's so great about the Mandalorian? It's adjacent to all these other stories that we already know, but it's not a story we've heard before, right? I prefer that to something like the saga of Boba Fett, or I haven't watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi show yet, but I think that it gets really dangerous when you go and you explore a character that we already know a lot about. People tend to be more picky about that. I think that there's so much room inside of a universe, whether it's MCU or Star Wars or whatever it is, to go in there and to play with things that, for example, again, in Mandalorian, when you have certain characters show up that are, classic Star Wars characters, and they show up in Mandalorian, everyone's really excited and they're hooting and hollering. But that's not the whole show. It's just like a fun crossover event, And so for me, What If and Loki felt like that because they took us somewhere where we were like the whole TVA the scene in Loki where the guy opens the desk drawers and there's like 30 Infinity Stones in there. I was like, oh my god, this is awesome, because here we've been led to believe that these are the most powerful things in the universe, and they're just like basically paperweights on this guy's desk,
Yeah.
and then leading up to to kind of like the timekeepers and this, and then everyone kind of realizing that even like what they think is true isn't true, about the nature of the universe and the nature of reality, and Loki kind of using his classic like questioning and not trusting and wanting to dive into the answers, to kind of like get deeper into that. I just really loved that ride. And then with What If, it was like, it was fun to just see all those possibilities, because I felt like, What If, kind of going back to what you said about time traveling, What If showed us, hey, here are the things that could have happened in these alternate scenarios and alternate realities, and then full circle, we actually saw a lot of that come up into Multiverse of Madness, because there was some connections to some of these characters that we had, Captain Carter and all that kind of stuff, so
Sure.
it was cool to see alternatives to what the normal storyline is, not just a further expansion on what we already know and expect.
That's the key thing right there, is expect. That was a slippery thing when the MCU started, when they opened up with Iron Man. I know myself, I wasn't a big Iron Man fan, but I am a
Any of the movies, or just the first one?
oh no, I mean like the character
Okay.
prior to the movie. I love the first movie because I'm a big Robert Downey Jr. fan. I don't want to say a big fan, but I cheer for that dude when he was
he
going.
was great. He was so good in it.
Yeah, it was like, growing up seeing this guy go through his struggles, and then when they brought him on, it was like, okay, I was like, I hope this works for him. I hope it works out, and it did.
I think there's a question that comes up a lot. Usually, I've noticed this question comes up surrounding Batman, where people say, "Oh, is he a good Batman or is he a good Bruce Wayne?" You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that Robert Downey Jr. completely embodied Tony Stark, like to the point where he owns that character now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's hard to see Tony Stark as someone other than Robert Downey Jr. It'd be hard to recast Tony Stark, and it kind of makes sense why they had to kill him off, because it was like, how are
Yeah.
they gonna recast him in even in another universe? You know what I mean? People wouldn't want to swallow that.
Yeah.
And Iron Man, I mean, anybody can be Iron Man, really, because it's just a suit with a voice, but
Yep.
in order to really own the character, it's like you have to feel Tony Stark, um
Yes.
and I think that he crushed that, kind of all around. And I think that, like, again, contrasting that with the latest Batman, um
Yeah.
I didn't love Pattinson as Bruce Wayne. I didn't think he was a great Bruce Wayne.
No.
I thought he was a decent Batman, but I didn't think he was a very good Bruce Wayne.
I think that was almost kind of the thing they were going for, though. They really didn't want him as Bruce Wayne. They wanted to make this a Batman story, and Bruce Wayne was more of a background entity. And to some degree, it's like, well, that works
Yeah.
because as Bruce Wayne, I can do without him as Bruce Wayne. As Batman, he was fine. I was okay with it. I didn't hate it for sure, but anytime he was Bruce Wayne, I was just like, okay, like and they try to touch upon you know the trauma, and the years, that he's grown up as he is, but you get to a point where we've seen the Batman story so many times. And even when they did the Dark Knight trilogy, Christian Bale, and it wasn't necessarily a younger Batman necessarily, but it was still, the beginning parts, and you still got to kind of see this guy is still tortured by this, to this day. And it's almost kind of like with this Patterson version, it's like, we don't need any more of that. Just give me the detective, because that's what they were wanting to focus on, was trying to make this more of a, showcasing his detective abilities. And I was like, okay, cool, let's go. And it was fine.
I was actually going to bring that up. That was the thing that I actually appreciated the most about the movie, was the return to Batman as detective, and not so much just a crime fighter, or just a, someone out on the streets, like hunting bad guys. But like, that's the truth of Batman's character, is that he sees himself as a detective. And I've always appreciated that part about his character, even when sometimes, he's even too smart. It seems like sometimes he's too good, he's got a little bit of that Sherlock Holmes vibe of just being almost too on the nose,
Yeah, there's always this debate in all the different groups. It's like, well, Batman could beat anybody with prep time. And I was like, sure. The argument, or the debate, I should say, comes up where it's like, who would win in a fight, Iron Man or Batman? And then it's who would win in a fight, Tony Stark's or Bruce Wayne. And it's like, ultimately, when it comes down to Batman, people are always saying prep time. Prep time, prep time, prep time. Whereas with Iron Man, he's in a robot suit. It's like, if you don't have your prep ready for him, you probably don't stand a chance.
But Bruce Wayne at his, were you a fan of the Batman the animated series?
I watched it, but I didn't really get into it as much as I got into X-Men and Spider-Man.
Okay, that was like my childhood, was like Batman the animated series and Superman. Batman out, even, Bruce Wayne outside of the suit is still a martial artist. You know what I mean? He is a trained martial artist in the suit and out of the suit. It's not the suit that makes him, that gives him his fighting abilities. Tony Stark's a playboy outside of the suit.
He's also a martial artist as well.
Is he?
I think Bruce Wayne has more in his pocket.
I think he's got the edge on Stark outside of the suit.
Correct. And that's always a debate that comes up back and forth. It's like, well, look, in the suit, I'm going to give it to Iron Man. Out of the suit, I think Bruce Wayne takes it. And the thing is, too, I'm trying to think, like, Bruce Wayne traditionally in the comic is about 6'4". He's a, big dude. He's no small fella. So you couple that with his dedication to, just anything he puts his mind to, he's going to become the best at it. So, you factor those things in. And Tony Stark's, I don't know what his what his height is and, what his weight would be. But I just feel like Batman has the size advantage and probably the skill advantage too. Just slightly on the skill advantage, I think. It's just, when we have these hypothetical debates, it does start coming down to, well, what things, especially, like, I guess, when you speak with, anyone that does martial arts versus somebody who doesn't do martial arts. And it's like, well, he can do this, and that. It's like, well, that's not how that would work. But they would more than likely work this way, and chances are that fight's going to go to the ground, and then we go from there. But I guess when it comes to the actors who have played these roles, especially lately, I don't think Robert Pattinson has done As a matter of fact, I believe there's a big controversy about him not wanting to put on weight at all. And Matt Reeves was not happy about that.
He wanted him to bulk up.
Yeah, just not much. Just kind of, add a little mass to him. And he was like, "No, I don't want to do that." So it's like, okay, I guess. Whereas you look at Affleck went and got all of the steroids and said, "You know what? I'm going to make this you'll see me as Batman. You'll see me in my cloth suits, and it won't matter." But the funny thing is, with all of the Justice League actors, I think everyone was working on some martial arts except for Affleck.
Did you like Affleck as Batman?
I liked him as Bruce Wayne. I thought he had the Bruce Wayne look down, but he looks like Bruce Wayne. He looks like what you would say a Bruce Wayne would look like. I didn't hate him as Batman. I don't know that I loved him as Batman. I would like to see.
Everyone said he was stiff, right?
Yeah, it just felt a little like I would have loved to have seen a solo Batman movie just to get a full feel for him.
And his Batman was very technology driven. I mean, not that Batman's always technologically driven, but he was really heavy with the technology.
Yes. Yeah, it was definitely heavy-handed in the tech.
Now, this was another thing that I've been looking forward to, and I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. Batman Beyond. Do you think they're going to do it? Do you think that they'll bring back Costner?
Keaton.
Keaton. I mean.
So it's tough to say with Warner Brothers and what they're doing, because the difference between Warner Brothers and Marvel Studios is that Warner Brothers, they're in control of all their properties. So they can do a Batman Beyond very easily. They can do Infinite Crisis. They can do Crisis on Infinite Earths. They could do whatever the hell they want to do without any pushback from other studios. So as it relates to Batman Beyond, I feel like they understand there is a want for this. There's a popularity to this. But I also think that Warner Brothers looks at the comic book properties right now as they're catching on to the train now. But when the MCU was moving along, they tried to catch on late. And when it blew up on them, I think they felt like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't put as much money into this or much effort into it. And it's like, well, no, you just got to get the right team.
Because make better movies.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like a Batman Beyond movie bringing Keaton back would kill. It'd be so much fan service, so much love. But the thing is, it has to be taken care of. It has to be appreciated by the director. You can't just let a guy go in there and nitpick and change it all up. You have to, let them come in there and appreciate what came before and go to the source material versus just saying, you know what I want to do? I want to change this up. I want to make, I want to make him black. I want to make Batman, I want to make Bruce Wayne black now. And it's like, well, wait a minute. That's not the source. It's just like with Spawn, when they changed Spawn's best friend. I can never remember his name, but they made him white. And it's like,
in the movie, you mean?
Yeah.
From the comic book to the movie.
Correct. It's like, I don't like when they change things up race wise for characters. It's just, it doesn't make sense. So, I wouldn't want to, not that there's any rumors that they're going to do that with Terry McGinnis or Bruce Wayne, but sometimes studios just like to get cute.
Well,
And
there's that cultural pressure now where it's like we just can't make a movie that's got 5 white leads in it. You know what I mean? So it's like this guy's got to be. We got to change this person. We got to change that person. We got to change this character. Or like
yeah,
what was this movie that was I was oh you know like it was interesting that I was watching this movie recently, or actually the HBO series Chernobyl, and
okay, yeah,
it was really good. And there was this one female scientist, and um, I was thinking like, this seems like this character seems kind of she's very like she seems like very like front and center in a kind of like girl power kind of way,
yep,
and
yep,
later I read up on it, and it said, oh, like she's not a real character, but she's a collection of she's made to represent a collection of people that were like that, you know what I mean? And it's just like
yeah,
they just kind of smash things together. It's like, hey, look, like if the story is that 3 white guys went to the moon, we can't change the history. You know what I mean? Like the history is the history, like, and
yeah.
I don't know, like, okay, if they made Terry McGinnis black, would you have a problem with it?
I actually would.
You wouldn't like it.
So my thing is, let the source material be what the source material is. If you want to put a black character front and center, then use one of the other black characters. Static Shock is a great character to utilize. Black Lightning is a character. They had the series for him. That's another great character to utilize. Lucius Fox, his grandson, I believe, Lucas, build off of him. But don't take a character that's already, one race and then make him another. Just like in the Fantastic Four when they made Johnny Storm black. And it's like, no. But then they kept Sue white. And that's what actually frustrated me more. Because, and I've said this before with being, a kid through adoption, like with the family and whatnot. And my brothers, my blood related brothers were with me in foster care. There's a different connection there between my younger brothers and I versus our foster family, who loved and cared for us as well. We love them too. But that bond isn't as strong as that blood bond. And that's not always the case with everyone, blood relation. I get that. But it's like when you take those two characters, Johnny and Sue, and yes, they adopted her and they raised her. It's like a piece of that is taken away when you add that factor in there. And whether they were doing it to, make the adopted kid group feel like, they have a place in film, I don't know. Because that's always the thing now with films, is like trying to make someone feel recognized, and it's like, look, that's fine, for the right film, but you can't just cram that into Fantastic Four. I mean, it was a shit film anyway, but the point is, though, it's like just changing races of characters for the sake of changing the race of the character. It doesn't help anything, if like when they did Black Panther, that was perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's like, okay, now we get it. Like, let's not make any more changes. Just like T'Challa, he's black. Killmonger, he's black. M'Baku, he's black. Perfect. Leave it that way. And even with put in Bucky there as the White Wolf. Perfect. That's good. Let's keep that running. And again, like I said, I don't think there's any rumors for them to change Terry McGinnis, but I just feel like this day and age,
something like that could happen.
Yeah. I just want them, if they're going to take that property and make it work, treat it with love. But also, Warner Brothers has a bizarre history of just starting something and then not giving a damn down the line. We saw that with Suicide Squad. So,
yeah,
right.
That was another weird one. And I technically liked the second Suicide Squad more than the first, but
yeah.
But it was still strange. Oh, you know what I did love though was Peacemaker.
So I started it. I haven't continued, but it's fun.
It's
I just
fun.
haven't had the time to, because my wife, she works nights, so we don't get a lot of time to sit down and watch shows and movies. Other than Friday night, she gets home and she's exhausted, because she gets home from work on Friday morning, and she homeschools our daughter. So she's go 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 go, and once I get home, we put the kid down for bed. She's out. And then Saturday, we're trying to play catch up on all our shows on Saturday night. It's like, and sometimes on Wednesday, like today's Wednesday, we watch Ms. Marvel. We'll watch Obi-Wan later on today.
So is that the rule? You guys got to watch together, huh?
We don't have to, but we try to. We try to, because she's into a lot of this as well. So the rule is, for us at least, if we started it, they continue it. If we're both into it,
Mm-hmm.
I think like Boba Fett, we I think she was into Boba Fett, and I was like, I'm done.
I
This
couldn't even make it past episode 3.
Yeah, I think that was my cutoff. I don't even think I made it halfway through 3. I was just like, I'm out of here. I have no interest in what's going on. I don't care. You can't make me care. And I think we had missed several weeks. My wife goes, "Do you want to finish up Boba Fett?" And I was like, "Not really." Like, I have the internet. I'll just go read the cliff notes. But that's one example there. It's like, if one's filling it and the other one's not, then we just tell them, like, look, you can go ahead and finish up. Like, we're trying to watch The Boys.
I love The
So
Boys.
so season 3 we started the first 3 episodes. I think they dropped. We haven't watched episode 4. We got to rewatch 3 because I think she fell asleep halfway through 3. So we'll rewatch that this weekend and then watch episode 4, and then I guess 5 on Saturday. But we try to kind of keep things in that pocket where if we started it, we want to finish it together. But if there's something like Boba Fett or even Ms. Marvel, I get it. It's not for me. It's cute. I get the audience that it's for. I'm just watching it to kind of interconnect with the rest of the stuff.
That's
But
the other problem is the the MCU kind of has this arrogance in a way that there's an assumption that you're going to consume everything that they put out in order to be up with the storyline,
yeah,
and I would so much rather consume something like The Boys, which is smaller and more defined, and just like you said, like it's really it's really cared about. The property is really cared about. And like another example is like Invincible. I loved Invincible. But there was no expectation that I was going to have to watch many other movies and series to understand what was going on or to feel relevant in the storyline. I can just watch a couple of episodes and I can just watch a couple of episodes and like really enjoy what was going on. And like I thought that there was an interesting I kind of felt like The Boys and Invincible kind of coming out around the same time started to break down this wall, that we only expect superheroes to be good and perfect. And like part of what's interesting to us now, I think, is to think about all the ways that maybe the more human isn't the right word, but to think about the imperfections that superheroes have too, and I think that that's a really interesting side view that we're often not shown, because we're often only shown the best parts of everything, like the moment in, I forget which one it was, but where Thor was, we had Fat Thor, you know what I mean, and he's just in Asgard playing Xbox, and he's kind of just fucked up because he knows that he messed up, he feels like he could have stopped Thanos, and he didn't, and so like the imperfections of the characters are almost more interesting than a perfect character.
Yeah. I think with Marvel, they definitely try to gloss over that. And Yeah, like they'll give you a taste, but they don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And to me, I like to see those imperfections. Like watching The Boys was great. Watching Invincible was great. And another thing I like about properties like that coming out is it shows you that there's more out there than just the big two. When you get to, and I mean, Image has been around for what, 25 years now, I think. And you get things like we got Spawn that had a movie and an animated series on HBO.
They're both good.
Wildcats was another animated series from Image Comics. Then we get Walking Dead eventually, and Invincible, also by Robert Kirkman. Outcast, another Robert Kirkman property that went to Cinemax. So it's good to see these other third party publishers coming out with material, because sometimes you'll talk to somebody about comic books and the first thing comes out of their mouth, and rightfully so, would be Spider-Man or Batman, DC or Marvel. And that's always the question too. Whenever you encounter somebody, the question comes up, so which one are you, DC or Marvel? It's like, well, why can't I be Image or Dynamite Comics or Boom Studios? Or why do I got to pick between either or? It's almost kind of like our political system.
Absolutely.
So, there's more than just the big two. There's a lot more to branch off into. And having The Boys doing so well and having Invincible being so loved by so many, and even though I don't like the Walking Dead TV series, I love the comic, but still that publicity puts eyes on the property, and I like it. I'm happy just to have it.
I grew up in LA, and I grew up actually right off of Sunset Boulevard, and
Nice.
across the street from my house was a comic book store called Meltdown Comics. It isn't there anymore, but it was one of the biggest comic book stores, and I would go there as a kid, and I would just walk down the aisles, and I would just flip through all the different books and just pull out things that were interesting to me, and I would just kind of read through them. And I never really was a serial reader. Like I never read like everything in a series, you know what I mean? But I would always
Sure.
read a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I mean, I think something that people don't really understand is like there's in the comic books, there are so many stories that are told that we've never heard before, because
Yeah.
because we let in comic books, we let authors and artists go and tell a story that they want to tell, and I was always really into the dark Batman stuff. You know what I mean? I was
Sure.
always really liked that because I felt like we always got kind of a censored Batman, but there was an uncensored Batman out there too. And The Walking Dead was a good example of that too, because it's like that was a brutal story. It's only a brutal story,
Yeah.
And I think that there was a time when, as consumers, people weren't really in touch with how we wanted to hear these brutal stories, and almost hopeless stories, almost a
Yeah.
story of diminished hope. Um, and now I think that there's networks that have kind of grabbed onto that, and they've seen that actually there is a demand for this, or people do want to kind of hear some of these more brutal stories. And I heard when the newest Batman came out, people said, "Oh my God, finally a brutal Batman, finally a mean Batman, he's really hurting people."
So
Um,
I wonder with that though too, is it because when you take using Batman as the example, let's go back to the Batman of the '60s with Adam West.
the
You know,
joking Batman.
yeah, and comic books were meant for kids. Comic books were only for kids, and now you take these properties, you got to make the property fun for kids. So you watch Batman, and it's super colorful, and all the villains are extremely animated and funny and silly, and just so corny. And then you get to, as time goes on, you get to Frank Miller. He's doing Batman and Daredevil, for that matter, changing both the trajectory of both those characters. And then, we're still kids around that time, but as we get older, there's still kind of some remnants of that hanging around. And then, as we're getting older, we're seeing Punisher now, and Azrael, and we're seeing Joker, beat Robin to death with a crowbar. So you're seeing these stories that are a lot more mature. But I wonder if that's, as we're growing with the stories, the writers are growing as well and saying, you know what, our audience is changing, our audience is growing. So we, let's kind of keep the ball rolling. I remember, I want to say maybe 2014, maybe 15, in that window, I went back to picking up comics, Lucy's single issues, and I picked up Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and I bought 3 issues of it, and I started reading it, and I was like, holy shit, this isn't for me. Like, because, Miles Morales is a teenage kid, so they're telling the story of a teenage boy, and he's hanging out with his friend, and, they're getting into hijinks, but he's still got to be Spider-Man. And I was like, okay, this story, I was like, it's fine, but not fine for me. So then that's where it clicked. I was like, wait a minute now, let me go pick up Batman. Oh, we got, Batman year 0 year in DC Comics. And, that story's a little bit more grittier, death of the family, where, Joker's tormenting everyone. And it's like, okay, I get it now. These characters that we grew up with have grown as well. And not just on page, but also on film in some ways. And, they still have the stories there for the kids. Like my daughter, she loves Spider-Gwen. My daughter's a big fan of the DC superhero girls and the Teen Titans Go, stuff like that. So it's like, okay, there's that material for them, and they'll grow at some point. Because she's seen, I have digital comics, I have Comixology, and she's flipping through and she'll see Batgirl. And she's like, "Ooh, I want to read that." I was like, "No, baby, you're not ready for that one yet." She likes Batgirl a lot, but it's like, you can't like this Batgirl. She'll see Joker and Harley Quinn. "Oh, I want to read that." "Baby, you can't read those right now." Yeah, she's like, "Okay." And then, she's learning to read. So that freaks me out, because she's been like over my shoulder reading text messages, like as me and my wife are talking about what are we doing for dinner, and my daughter's like, "We can have." What's Pizza? Oh, that's pizza, baby. That's pizza. Oh, we're gonna have pizza. I was like, yes, baby. So now we can't keep secrets from this kid anymore. But
that's fun.
She sees the comic books, and she's like, "Oh, I want to read those." Like, well, those aren't for you, but here are the comics for you. But again, there's going to be that growth with her and kids of her generation in the comics as well. And I feel like the studios have kind of tapped into that a little bit. And I think Marvel has even kind of caught on to it with Moon Knight, and who knows what they're going to do with Punisher upcoming, but, and they're bringing back Daredevil. So I like the idea that they figured it out. I just hope that they kind of continue, because they know that they're losing viewers to The Boys. And part of them, I'm certain, is like, how are we losing to Dynamite Comics? Like we're Marvel. Like we're $1 billion properties left and right. Meanwhile, The Boys is on Amazon, and it's fun. And it's almost like
it's irreverent. Also,
it feels like truthful. It feels like, what, this is what it would possibly be like if superheroes were around. They'd have egos, they have emotions, they have feelings, and responsibilities and irresponsibilities. So
it treats them more like a professional athlete, or like a professional, like a movie star. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Where there's all these teams, and publicity teams, and management teams, and like all these kinds of people who are like cultivating their their image publicly, right? But really they're shitty, and they do hit and runs, and they commit rape, and they, you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
they're doing all these terrible things that we know that a lot of our heroes are guilty of, you know what I mean, and it gets
yeah, yeah,
swept under the rug because of their status,
yeah, absolutely. And but that's the thing to be spoken to, though, because again, that's the world.
right?
I have friends who they grew up on comic books, again as kids, and they kind of stuck back to that. So when they see something like Daredevil, they're like, I don't want to watch that. That's violent. Or they see Punisher, I don't want to watch that. That's violent. I don't watch The Boys. That's aggressive. And it's like, it's the real world. That's the
That's
world
real
we
though.
live
Yeah.
in, though.
Like
So
in in V for Vendetta, uh he says artists use lies to tell the truth,
yeah,
and I
that's
think
us.
that's on point, and I think that when you feel like you're being lied to, or when you feel like you're being shown something, I think as a culture we're kind of past that, like we're not as interested in the rosy glasses version of like the Superman comics of yesterday, you know what I mean, like
Hmm.
the everything is perfect and everything is happy, and Superman is going to save the world kind of thing. Like I think that we're kind of past that a little bit, and I think that it's
Yeah,
refreshing. It's refreshing to see something like The Boys, um because it shows us an imperfect world that still feels very real and still feels very uh you know close to us, but it's still separated enough for us to be able to kind of enjoy it, and not feel like, oh wow, this is a little too close to home.
yeah. There's, every so often it's nice to see that, happy ending, the good guy win. Every so often now, but when you connect to reality, and that's just not the way it goes. It's what kind of what we hope. We want the good guy to win, but good and bad is such a weird line because there are people doing good things in the world that someone else might perceive as bad, and vice versa. So when we say, yay, the hero wins, I mean, The Boys, again, is that example. We look at Homelander. He's our hero. He's the good guy. Meanwhile, he let a plane full of people crash. It's like, that's not a hero, but, his excuse was, we can't save them. In his mind, it's justified. Queen Maeve was like, no, we have to save them. She felt guilty. You got the, passengers terrified, and they're like, yes, our hero's here. Meanwhile, their hero just let them go. So, it's like point of view is a huge factor. And like I said, his point of view was he was right. He was justified. Whereas you're looking at it from the other side of that glass, and it's like, oh my God, this guy's a monster.
Have
So
you watched you've watched a couple of the episodes from this first season?
yes, we watched at least 1 and 2.
So you saw the episode where she threatens to release the plane video, and his response is
Yes.
like, his response was perfect. He was he's just like, uh hey, if you want me to be your enemy, I'll be your enemy, like
Yeah. And that's my thing with this season. Just well, and even the reaction that he went off the cuff and spoke his mind, and his approval rating went up, and
uh-huh.
everyone started to love him. And as soon as that happened, I was like, that is the worst possible thing for the
Mm-hmm.
world, to let
Mm-hmm.
Homelander understand that, wait a minute, I just spoke the truth, and these people love it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to do this more and let
It's
them
a,
see the real me.
it's a little bit of like a Donald Trump character. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he said the very unpopular thing that you thought no one would ever say on that stage. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
now, instead of being repulsed by it, people are actually excited by it because they're like, we've never heard anyone say this before.
Yeah, they're like, we didn't think anyone could say this.
Mm-hmm.
So now that someone can say it, we're excited. Give us more. And it's like, oh wow. And like you said, like with Homelander making a statement, hey, if you want me to be your enemy, that's the last thing you want, is for this guy to, go off the handle and truly become a villain, because, how can he stop him?
No, I was gonna say that the corporate side of the boys is interesting too, because there's this corporate overlord, you know, uh,
Yes.
uh, characters inside of Vought that they have so much confidence in their ability to maintain control over everything, and really
Hmm.
it seems like they're playing with such volatile elements, and yet they are so calm and seemingly never out of step with controlling all these different, like, fiery pieces.
Yeah, that's something that stresses me out when I'm watching it because it's like these cats are super calm talking to this dude like that. Like there's no worry. And I don't like I have I think I want to say the first three volumes of the first three um trades for the boys. And I have read, I want to say the first one, at least some of the first. I haven't gotten through all of it because there's this running joke over here with me with comics when I do uh, another podcast with my friends, Nerd Rage Radio. We'll ask if I read a book, and I'm like, yeah, I read the first 7 pages, and it's just that's always it. It's like the first 7 pages. I feel like I think I got a good grasp of the story. So you feel like, nah, probably not, but I wonder what's coming down the line and why they're so calm with talking to Homelander that way because that dude's a loose cannon.
Right.
And, like I said, the last thing you want is for this dude to really go off the handle and just say, you know what, fuck all of you. I can do what I want and no one can stop me, which I guess is kind of the theme for this season. Them trying to find, the weapon that stopped Soldier Boy is like maybe we can use this to stop Homelander.
Right.
So we'll see where that goes.
That
Um,
was another thing that was fun about it. Uh, Going back to that plane crash that you were talking about from season one, was like, you know, uh, I think Maeve says something like, "Hey, well, can't you just like lift up the airplane?"
yeah.
And he was like, "With what? Like, what am I? I'm not. I'm standing on air. You know what I mean? Like." And so there's kind of this like that's something that would have been a no brainer for Superman.
Hmm.
He would have just lifted the airplane. You know what I mean? But Homelander was like, the physics of this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So in that way, it was almost more real than another. It was more tied to reality than Superman.
I mean, again, he's justified in what he was saying because, like, yeah, like, what am I pushing off of? So, again, from his perspective, he's right. From everyone else's perspective, it's like, maybe not. I don't think he's right. But what was it? I guess the story of the boys actually came about right after Marvel did Civil War, where
Mm,
it kind of builds that question of who's right and who's wrong. Should they be registered? Because with Civil War, how it came about in the comic, the New Warriors were now reality TV stars, and they were chasing down a villain. They chased them into an abandoned warehouse. An explosion took place. They killed a school full of children, and then that's where they're like, okay, these heroes need to be put in check. And but that also gave now that it opened that window for another writer to say, well, wait a minute, they're right, they do need to be kept in check, but what if you do have them in check? What if you do have a section here in the Northeast, and then the Midwest, and so forth. um so Marvel, again, they tapped into it, but they didn't want to go all the way in, whereas um what's the guy who wrote the boys, Ennis something Ennis, he was like, nah, let's embrace all of this, let's go. Like,
and
let's
I,
tell the story.
and even incorporating in the pageant shows and the
Yeah.
America's Got Talent type thing, the
Yeah.
American Idol, who's going to be the next one in the seven, um type type, like, I mean, America is obsessed with this kind of celebrity, and so it,
Yes.
it only makes sense that if there were, all these superheroes. And that's another thing I love about the boys, is that there's all these superheroes that are just marginalized superheroes. They're not even like that special,
Yep.
and it's not like other universes where if you're a superhero, there's like this expectation that you're automatically one of the elite special people. It's like there's a lot of superheroes in The Boys that are just kind of marginalized and don't really have any standing at all. And it's even a threat, that's even a threat that they give to like the Deep, I think in season 1 or season 2, where they were like, dude, we'll send you to Milwaukee or whatever. Like we'll like
Yeah, it's messed up. They pick Milwaukee like that. Milwaukee does seem like a place that maybe I don't know. I'm not. Let me chill. I don't even want to say something wrong. Somebody from Milwaukee message like, "How dare you? We're great up here in Wisconsin." I was like, "Dude, you're in Wisconsin. Relax."
I'm not 100% sure it was Milwaukee. That was what
I think they said. Well, I'm pretty certain they said it's. Now I want to check, but I think they said Milwaukee. And if not, we're rewriting it. They definitely did. They definitely said Milwaukee. You heard it here first. So, of the comic book characters that because we have so many properties out there right now, is there any character that you like, that you think that doesn't have a movie, that you think should have a movie?
A character I like that I want to have a movie. I've always been a fan of the Punisher, so I do want to see the Punisher come back with the standalone. I think that the Ghost Rider movie that was made was not up to the standards of that character. So I think that could be interesting to see an actual Ghost Rider movie. I think that ditto to the Green Lantern. I think that we could see a better Green Lantern property. I hope now with the new casting that we'll see a legit Fantastic Four movie. I hope that comes out, based on the because that was one of those things where it's like you said, that could have just been fan service in terms of just, hey, we know the internet wants this, so we're going to put this on screen for 30 seconds, but we're not sure how we're going to go forward with this. But I really hope that's not the case. I really hope that they do plan to pursue the Fantastic Four. And it's interesting. I think that the MCU has figured out how not to mess up these films. You know what I mean? I think that I think that now, I think there was a lot of time in the past when these were standalone. We tried a lot of standalone films, and for whatever reason, they just didn't stand up the way they should have, And sure. I think that now, in the broader context, that things are being treated better. So I do hope that the next Fantastic Four, would be a better story. But trying to think of a character that hasn't been done yet.
Now I have to look around on my wall up here in the basement.
You know who I've always had a connection to is Gambit. I've always loved Gambit. I just loved his New Orleans twang, and I just thought he was an interesting mutant. What did you think about the First Class stories?
So the X-Men First Class. So I'm going to be honest. When that first came out, I had zero interest. This was before I kind of had an understanding that you can have a good movie, but a bad comic book movie. They can coexist. And even as a comic book movie, it was still a good comic book movie. I don't think it was a good X-Men movie. I enjoyed the movie a lot. Like when I did eventually see it, I loved it. I hated it as an X-Men movie though, but I loved it as a movie in itself. I loved it as a comic book movie in itself. At one point, Fox was working on, they had done X-Men Origins Wolverine, and they were also working on X-Men Origins Magneto. X-Men First Class became what was meant to be the Magneto story. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting that backstory that they created there, having Kevin Bacon as Sebastian Shaw, having Michael Fassbender playing Magneto.
Going back and hunting Nazis down.
Yes, it was
that was satisfying.
it was just fun to see. I wanted to see more of that. It's like, give me more of that world. And they did. They had the sequels with Days of Future Past.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoyed that thoroughly. It was so good. Then they did Apocalypse, and I got emotional. We went to see it as a group, and as we walked out, my one buddy patted me on the shoulder, goes, "Dante, I'm sorry. I know how much you wanted this to be good."
No.
And I still watch Apocalypse as kind of a background noise thing sometimes. And then they did the Dark Phoenix again. And it's a good action movie for sure. It was well shot. There's a lot of good to that movie, except for the story. But the movie itself, as like a visual, it was fun. But like that set of films, from First Class down to Dark Phoenix, we can keep those first two for sure. And then the last two, I could do. Oh, and then New Mutants. You throw New Mutants in there as well. I did enjoy New Mutants, but it was because I disconnected it from the rest of the world. I just said, you know what? This is just a comic book movie. It has nothing to do with any of these other characters. Just think of it that way. And I did. And I was like, you know what? It's fun. Deadpool,
I like Fassbender and McAvoy as young Xavier and Magneto. I didn't hate that casting.
Yeah, the casting I thought was like even from top to bottom, like from all the movies, I thought the casting for everyone was really good. So it's just, as the story started going along, the story started getting weaker. I mean, hell, they had Oscar Isaacs as Apocalypse, and it's like, dude, like I'll watch it. I'll watch that dude play any character, and then
watch it.
Then he played Apocalypse, and I was like, fuck. It's like God, like not you, Oscar. But I enjoyed them. Again, First Class as a film. My heart is always set in the ideal of comic books, especially X-Men. I was like, look, give me the original 5 in some capacity, and then let's go with the second generation, being Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, Sunfire, Thunderbird. Give me that Banshee, give me that group, and then after that, do whatever the hell you do, because from there's so many different iterations of the team that it's just pull names out of a hat and you got an X-Men team. But I would love to see the original 5 story on film.
Yeah.
And have a genuine First Class.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Out of characters, comic book, movie, however it goes, who's your favorite villain?
Ooh. Doom.
Nice. Love the choice there.
I love Doom. I just love everything about him. I love the story. I love the mask. I love the always planning something huge, kind of a way, always secluded, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's something to be said for a character, a bad character who hides in plain sight, kind of like a Lex Luthor, There's something about that where you're like, oh wow, he's a baddie, but he's right there in the front of everything, you know what I mean? But then there's something else to be said for kind of a character like Doom who isn't really hiding from the fact that he's evil, you know what I mean? He's not really shy of it,
Like he knows what he is, and he's not afraid to let you know.
Yeah. So, how about you?
As far as villains go, it gets weird because, like I said, that good and bad thing gets a blurred line. Because Magneto used to always be the guy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of it was, in the 90s when you see him basically say, look, we're going to go on to Asteroid M and have a sanctuary for mutants here. And essentially, that's what it was. He was like, don't mess with me. I won't mess with you. It's that simple. Like, just leave me the fuck alone. I was like, you know what? I can dig that. I like it. Then when they mess with them, he came down and wreaked havoc. He just started kicking ass. Then he disappeared again. And he came out of hiding once more. Because that's when he was really starting to recruit and say, look, we're taking all mutants are welcome to come join us on Asteroid M, on Avalon. And, you know, we don't need to deal with this anymore. Colossus left the X-Men to join him. And what I can't remember what he did, but it set the X-Men off. They went up there after him. This is an X-Men number 25. Magneto ripped Wolverine's adamantium out. And I think that's what sealed it for me. Because for all these years, you're wondering, like, why doesn't he just stop Wolverine? He can stop Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
And Wolverine went berserker, went at him, and Magneto's like, enough of your shit. And even Professor X warned him. He was like, going up there, he was like, look, we're dealing with a different Eric today. Mm-hmm. I don't want you going near him. And Wolverine was like, yeah, okay. And then Magneto's like, oh, you don't listen, do you? And he ripped that adamantium right out. And God damn, dude, I might have to read that today. First 7 pages, of course.
First 7 pages.
But like what he did to Wolverine was so good. It just made me feel like, you know what? I like that he wanted to be left alone. I'm all about that life, but the fact that they didn't leave him alone and he just was like, okay, well, I'm going to show you why you should leave me alone. And he did the damn thing, and it was like, oh shit. I think they're like, you know what? Let's just we're going to take this L. Let's scoop up Logan and all his stuff, and let's get the hell out of here. And that was life. So,
did they put him back together?
So eventually he got the adamantium back, but when it got back to Earth, his healing factor kept him alive, and that's when you discover that Logan. So it was always thought that the claws came along with the adamantium,
right? But they were there from before.
Yep, he had the bone claws.
They're just coated in adamantium.
One of my Wolverines here, this one with the bone claws, I was excited for this just because it was like, I just want a Wolverine figure with the bone claws.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start going more feral as well. So, it added a new chapter to that character story. But Magneto just doing what he did just made it very clear. I'm not to be trifled with. Just leave me alone. I want to be here. We don't want to be bothered. And there's just so much of that speaks to Dante that Dante loves it.
Mm.
So yeah. Well, one thing I think about too is like if you could do a podcast with any character, good or bad, who would you do that podcast with?
Interesting. Who would I do a podcast with? Any character, good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
I think I would do a podcast with Thor. It just sounds fun.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be a fun episode, or not just episode, a fun show. Period.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting because I just like, I mean, and I know that with the modern evolution of the character, just like the always kind of joking around, never really that serious until he has to be. But I think that I actually probably the Marvel movie that I can watch over and over again the most, probably for me the most rewatchable Marvel movie is Ragnarok.
Okay.
I just think it's hilarious. I just think it's great. I just love watching it over and over again. And yeah, so I'd like to do a podcast with Thor.
Thor it is. I think that'd be a fun show. Period. It's just like you said, with the character and the evolution of that character, and Ragnarok is starting to grow on me. It used to be one of my least favorites, just because I felt it was so detached from everything. but it was attached but detached. But then as I went back and started watching it, and you see all the chaos that's going on, but it's covered by bright colors. It's like, oh, there's the bad stuff. They're killing characters. That's what I like. Oh, and they're not making it obvious. Okay, I like what they're doing here. So I have a newfound appreciation for that movie.
And like right as soon as they leave Asgard and Asgard explodes, then
Yeah.
they get boarded by Thanos like right immediately afterwards. It's like
Yes.
it's not actually a happy story, you know.
No, not at all. And that's the thing. It's colored in such a way where you're like, oh, look at this bright, colorful movie. You got all these jokes and all this laughter, but
Mm-hmm.
underneath it all, you've got Thor, Asgard being destroyed. You've got Thor having to fight Hela, and
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately,
Odin dying.
Odin dies. The like Thor's story is so unique, and I think people don't really see that growth that character had, and just the journey he's gone through. So, it just, again, doing a podcast with that character would be fun to hear him go off the rails about things, because you hear it in Endgame when he asked him, like, okay, Thor, what can you tell us about the ether? And then he just starts rambling. He's like, oh, and then that's Jane. We had a falling out, and then this is my mother. It's just so it'd be interesting to like hear him go off topic. It's like, then you got to reel him back in. I don't. I asked the question, but I never really thought about it myself. Maybe Iron Man, Tony Stark. I think just sitting with that dude, you just maybe not, because there'd be too much tech involved. I want to just like I'm a very like, if you see my setup, if you can see my setup, it's very much like there's a microphone, a laptop, and a ring light. I try to keep it as simple as possible. Like Tony Stark would be like, okay, well, what we need here is this. Like, okay, I'm done. Thanks. No, stop. Maybe Professor X.
Yeah, but he would know all the questions before you ask them.
Yeah, that's trash. I don't want to work with that guy. He's trash. Let me look around my room real quick. What figures do I have on the shelves?
How long do you think it is before Elon Musk becomes Tony Stark?
I give we're in 2022. I give it to 2030 before he realizes, wait a minute, I can do this. So 8 years. So, because if he doesn't do it by then, look, I am going to probably write a letter, start a petition, because there's always a petition for something. Like you name it, there's a petition. There's a petition to take Amber Heard out of Aquaman. It's like, I'm pretty sure they've already finished filming. So
I could see Elon Musk saying, "I am the Iron Man."
I think he'd be fine at it. Same as Tony, reluctant hero.
Right.
It's like, look, I'm just doing it because no one else is going to. I think Elon Musk is that way as well. It's like, look, if no one else is going to do it, I'll step up. I don't want to do it, but I will. So good for that guy, because most people wouldn't. Most people, they're like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and avoid that. So I give it 8 years before he decides to just make an Iron Man suit and first test it out. And then that's when we discover, wait a minute, we've got, giant green men running around in Brazil. We've got a hammer that landed in New Mexico. We got a super spy who's what the fuck does Black Widow do?
Like, she interrogates people.
I mean, yeah, she gets the answers. Like when they called her during Avengers, she was like, hold on, this guy's about to tell me everything. Like, he's like, no, I'm not.
That was a funny scene.
But yeah, I think where we are as far as all these properties and the comic book world goes, I think we're in good hands for the most part. The the studio sees the tide changing, and like I said, you get properties like The Boys and Invincible. Marvel is doing whatever it does and still succeeding. And DC, one day they'll give us what we want and do it right. So besides Batman, they always nail it with Batman, except for uh Clooney, Batman and Robin. But otherwise, they always do well with that.
Oh yeah, that was actually a question I had for you. Why
Mm,
don't you think that they've had more Robin properties or Nightwing or anything? It just seems like everything's a Batman standalone right now.
I don't know because Nightwing is wildly popular, and even Damian Wayne is wildly popular. Robin is a character that everyone knows and loves. I wouldn't say loves, but people recognize and know that character. I wonder. I'm wondering if part of what the issue is when they do the Batman films. So we'll go with the '90s. You got to a point where you get Batman Forever, and that's where you get your first introduction to Robin on film.
Right.
Then you get Batman and Robin, and it kind of falls apart from there. So then we get
Because
Batman
it got
Begin.
they tried to it got they went back towards like some of that 60s Batman and Robin, and it wasn't a good look, you know.
Yeah. Well, Joel Schumacher said in an interview, he made a statement. Well, not an interview. He was doing a commentary. That's what it was. He apologized during the commentary. He goes, "Yeah, we were just actually doing this to sell toys at this point."
Oh, nice.
So at least he's honest.
Okay,
You know?
great.
But as far as Robin goes, I feel like they haven't found the right story to. I think they don't think that he's gonna, connect with general audiences. But the thing is, they made a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Peacemaker's doing well. I think they can drop a Robin film well, I mean, they got Titans on HBO, and that goes up and down. I hear good things, I hear bad things, I hear good things. So I honestly would love to just see a flat out Nightwing solo film based in Chicago. Do what you do. And even if they want to build the story up, you know, put him in a film with Batman. Let us see him transition, or not a film, but kind of give like the little montage at the beginning. You see him transitioning out, and then goes become Nightwing, because it'd be fun. I think all these characters are fun, and we're getting a Batgirl movie, so
Yeah.
why not give us a Nightwing movie? Like,
I mean, they could build up to the whole team.
mhm,
They could have everybody on screen at the same time. You know,
yeah,
if the villain was bad enough, you know what I mean.
yeah.
They could have something that Batman couldn't even handle by himself. You know.
I mean, I'd love to see a Teen Titans film, and they start off with Deathstroke, and they build up the Trigon,
Mhm.
in a third film or something. I think that would be fun to see, but also I think Warner Brothers right now is kind of asking themselves, where does everything fit together? Because right now, Marvel, they put out a movie, it's going to fit somewhere. With Warner Brothers in DC, I think their mindset is, do we need to connect everything, or can we just let it be? And I'd say let it be. Just
Yeah.
give us good movies. It doesn't need to be a bigger picture thing. So that's where that stands. All right. Well, Coach Phil, this has been great, dude. Like, I I was nervous coming into this because I was like, how do I approach this? Like, do I just jump right in and start talking? And it took off. So thank you for doing this with me. I
I
do
think we
appreciate it.
I think we made it happen.
Definitely, definitely. You got any shout outs or mentions that you want to throw out there for us?
Oh no, people can follow me on Instagram at Phill Schwartz 10p. We're throwing up new content every day. Uh, Come visit us, 10th Planet Portland, Oregon. Drop in and give us a roll. And yeah, thanks for listening.
All right, awesome. I'll make sure to put your info in the show notes, and I get your posts, and I drop them in the stories. So thank you for sharing that as well with me. So I'll make sure to get everything put up in the show notes for you as well, though. Everybody else out there that have any questions or concerns, always feel free to reach out to me at bjj.wiki on Instagram or Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram as well. I'm an open book, and I don't have any issues. If you don't like something, let me know so I can fix it. I ain't going to be able to fix it if you don't tell me. So please speak up. Big shout out to my good friends Eric and Ali over at Armbar Addict. I'm actually wearing their rash guard right now. Just left class and I had their rash guard on. So big shout out to them. Thank you for all that you do, and go check them out on Instagram under Armbar Addict. Shout out to my good friends over at bjjjudo.co on Instagram as well. It's run by Amy. She's trying to make it happen with some memes and get some merch out there. So go check out their Instagram as well. I'm going to throw up some posts for them as well. And a big shout out to Asgard 503. Go over there and check out Mike on Instagram, and also go check out the website, asgard503.com. Check out the geese, check out the rash guards, get yourself something. Otherwise, thank you, everyone, for all that you do and always listening. You guys keep listening, and I'm going to keep making these shows. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.